Hi, my name is PanXnubis Gaia Ladrieh. I am the founder of the O Academy of Magic Arts and Sciences, the founder of Midnight Sun Corporation, author of 23 going on 25 books. And I'm here to tell you more about myself today. As of right now, I'm relatively unknown within the public sphere. I was born and raised in Utah, in suburbia, um, and had essentially, I would say, two devotions growing up. One was to my religion. I was raised Mormon, and then the other probably was to punk rock music, and then eventually film, which I fell in love with my first job, which was a Hollywood video, and led to my first career as a filmmaker. Um, my spiritual path, or my true spiritual path, which is kind of interesting, I would say started while I was on my mission. I was a branch president in Buriram, Thailand, and I got dengue fever. And at one point, I flatlined and had an out of body experience. And I would say that experience, combined with my first exorcism happening within the same month, definitely drove a curiosity within me to look into the unknown, to look into the mysteries, to try to discover exactly what was going on beneath the surface of our reality. I truly believed in God and believed in the divine, and I wanted to know essentially how God did it. I mean, this just fascinated me growing up. And upon return from my mission, um, and help with the existential philosophy class that I took at BYU, I self excommunicated myself from the Mormon church and moved to Hollywood, which, in a sort of fit of adolescent rage, declared myself a hardcore atheist. Started toting around Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and he read Nietzsche voraciously. Um, but eventually, I had a complete dissatisfaction with atheism, especially the fact that I felt like it required just as much faith as being a believer, and this really irked me at that point in my life. And so my approach to existentialism, essentially as a antidote to nihilism, was essentially I started looking at it that, well, if nothing has anything meaning whatsoever, then whatever meaning you put on anything is completely fine. And this led to an interest in Zen and eventually a deeper inquiry um, into the mysteries. A lot of this was taking place while I was at film school in Los Angeles. I went to the LA Film School, class of 2007, and then did my internship at Sony Pictures Television shortly after that. And upon the completion of that, I had a very interesting dream. I came into possession of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and also I was reading Drumbulow's Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, and came to a point where I uh, just got honest with myself and felt like if what I was reading was actually true, um, then it would absolutely be the most important thing for me to find out if it was so. And so at that point, I set off into the world. I took a camera with me. I went to 28 countries in about 10 and a half months and filmed a documentary called Take It With You, which went on to win the Golden Ace Award at the Las Vegas Film Festival. Um, but it was basically my inquiry into spirituality, into ancient religions, into the mysteries. What I didn't know is that I was essentially knocking on the doors of the occult and looking for my entrance um, into it. Upon return, my focus really became on my film career. I went back to LA for another 7 or 8 years, founded and was the CEO and president of creative development of Apocalypse Pictures. Lived in Venice and declared myself an artist and created essentially an art labyrinth. But I got obsessed with a certain idea that I was writing a script about. It's called Primal Ethereal. It's essentially at what point and where exactly does the spirit meet the physical body? Or where does the ethereal realms, where does it touch the physical realm? And how do you make that distinction and how do you make that separation? And I was really obsessed with this idea, and I wrote so many drafts of this script. I still have working drafts of it. The film was never made, though it got close at one point. Um, and at that point, I also took a deep interest into the Kala Chakra Tantra. I traveled to India. I was initiated into the Kala Chakra Tantra and Bodhi Gaya. Had some very powerful and unique experiences in India. And eventually, during the filming of my film Intimare, our production was destroyed by a rogue tidal wave, which then was declared an act of God. And um, I basically was forced into moving to Denver, where I began studying with the Gurdjieffians, became part of an art collective, and practiced Aikido, and really spent the majority of my time reading every occult book that I could get my hands on. I mean, this was my total focus, um, and really just became obsessed with it. You know, um, close to the end of the Labyrinth period, which was the art experiment that we did in Venice. Um, Aleister Crowley, Eliphas Levi, and the Book of the Law kind of came really present into my consciousness. I became also, I really get obsessed with works of art and things that touch me. And Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain became like the be all end all for me for some time. I watched this movie almost every single day and showed it to everyone I could show it to. Um, but I really didn't know much about its origins, and it led to a deep curiosity in G.I. Gurdjieff and Aleister Crowley. Um, I really went deep into Gurdjieff first. Even studied with the Fourth Way for some time, and eventually it led me to a really intense decoding of Liber Al Vel Legis, which for me was a complete mystery, but I felt like I was starting to break through it, especially after really taking in Paul Foster Case's Occult Fundamentals and Spiritual Unfoldments. I felt like I really had the key through the Kabbalah and through reading the magical and philosophical commentaries on the Book of the Law. I actually, because I couldn't get a copy of the Equinox, I mean, at that point, I remember the only copy I could find was like $35,000. It was like way beyond my range. I actually essentially transcribed the entire thing personally off of bits and pieces that I could find on the internet. Literally typed out Aleister Crowley's like entire like autohagiography. Um, but this was all in my pursuit of simply just understanding this book, which was channeled in 3 days in Cairo, 1904. Anyway, eventually I met the love of my life that year, which changed everything in my life, completely shifted my focus. And that's when I really started to take my spiritual work seriously. And, I felt, I was cooking dinner for her one night, and she lovingly prodded me to write the Book of the Law Solved. And I laughed about it, thinking, I was like, wow, I'm sure the Thelemites are going to absolutely adore that book. But I ended up writing it in 2019, which became a big changing point for me in my trajectory. I founded the O exclamation O Academy of Magic Arts and Sciences later that year. It took almost a year before I finally recruited my first group of students. Um, but that's when like things really shifted, and that's when I went into my development of the Gaia Ladrieh series. I wrote The Rise of Gaia Ladrieh, The Vision of Gaia Ladrieh, The Virtues, and was developing out the idea of a new magic formula focused entirely on our position up here on planet Earth and what it would take for us to actually create essentially the ultimate society here. Just as a thought experiment and a world building exercise. But the deeper I got into it, the more serious I began to take it. And eventually, while living in Egypt and writing the Animate of Ipsis and commencing on the Bloodstone Tablet of Dionysus, which I'm still writing to this day. I've been working on it for almost 5 years straight, about 750 pages into it. Um, the book kept pushing me to go from Kabbalistic certainty of the words to the letters to the shape and size of the letters to developing my own magical language of amalgamated symbols and what I termed semantic transcendence, which then led me into the structure of grammar to set theory, number theory, and analysis. And that's what really pushed me beyond the wall to focus upon the fundamentals of mathematics and see what I could figure out in that regard. See, where my ideas held up mathematically and where they did not, which eventually led me to the publishing of the Holy Grail of Mathematical Theory of Admissible Reality, which I released earlier this year, and then also the Sphere of Longinus, which is on constraint-gated reconstruction geometry. But all of this combined, and the development of Protocol M, which I'm very excited about and can't wait for it to be tested, because essentially I was able to narrow down that essentially doing a thought experiment in Einstein style of Maxwell's equations is like, if my ideas were plausible and if there's an observer neurocoupling that happens, but where exactly does that happen? And essentially, the constraints led it to the only way that we could find non-generic compression signatures would be in the compression taking place in the baroreceptor NTS pathway. And I basically developed the entire protocol off of that, and now I'm installing it into my own magical system. And that is where the academy is at now, is now integrating the mathematics and those discoveries, which some of my pet theories were personally falsified, and making those adjustments to my own body of work, and everything has been a diligent labor of love. But this is essentially who I am and what I'm about. If you really want to know what I think, it's all in the books. That's the best access to me. I'll make sure that a link to all my work is included in this video. But anyway, it's been a long time since I've introduced myself, and I wanted to essentially share with you who I am and what I'm about, and where this next phase is going. So thank you very much.